Welcome to the Amanda Hall mini workshop series here on Facebook Live every Wednesday morning at a more respectable hour, 8:30 a.m. here on the Gold Coast, which is Eastern Standard Time here in Australia. So I'm really excited and pleased that you can join us this week for workshop number 39. And this week we're going to be talking about the sun in Scorpio. So I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you again to our very, very live broadcast here every Wednesday morning from the Gold Coast. And let's get some T's and C's out of the road before we begin. This is not a workshop series where I do free readings for everybody. If you want the opportunity to have a free reading, can I suggest that you join my previous show on A1R Psychic Radio here on Facebook at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in Australia, where we do have a different format on that show, and I do take a couple of free readings there. But this Facebook Live is purely a workshop series where I'm hoping to enlighten you with some of my knowledge that I've amassed over 40 years of being in the psychic industry here in Australia. I've been very fortunate to be inducted into the Psychic Hall of Fame. I've won Psychic of the Year 4th year in a row, voted by the general public. So it's a really nice honour, and I'm really very humble and thank everybody that voted for me. But more importantly, let's get down to business. I will not be giving shout outs during this presentation. I like to try and keep it as seamless as possible, but please feel free to leave a comment there at where you are, wave from wherever you are in the United Kingdom, New Zealand, Australia, US of A, and I will get back to you within the next 48 hours. And if you have any questions, please, pop them in there and I will get back to you with a personal answer about the question that you might have, and not a reading. I'm talking about a question about the workshop. If you have something that you didn't quite understand that I'm talking about, please feel free to ask me about that. I do not do, as I said, free readings on this workshop series. This is purely an educational series that I do every week here on Facebook Live, directly after my show in the US of A out of the Washington district on A1R Psychic Radio. So let's welcome everybody again. Everybody's sort of getting nicely settled in. We're into the sign of Scorpio. So it's the Scorpio time of the year. And I hear a lot of you sort of sigh and think, oh no, ho-hum, we're into a very negative, sort of oppressive time of the year. It doesn't need to always feel like that. The Scorpio energy, yes, is very intense and it's very emotional. But we can't always be walking around on a high and everything flying high like an eagle. We need to have times where we come back and spend the time of taking the time to look inside ourselves and search for answers and understand why we have the emotions that we have and why we have the little times where we feel a little bit uncomfortable or we feel that we need to explore a little bit more. This is why we have different changes as we work our way around the zodiac of different lessons or different parts of our life that we need to explore. So the Scorpio energy is a water sign. Yes, it is water. But when we look at water, water can come in many forms. Now, the Scorpio water is like a block of frozen ice. It's like an ice cube that you would have in your freezer. So you can take it out and it starts to melt a little bit as it's at room temperature. But if you were to put that back into the freezer, it would refreeze. And then you could take it out again and thaw it a little bit and refreeze it, and you could keep doing this. But each time you pop it back in the freezer, it actually gets stronger and denser. The freezing process becomes more intense. Now, I want you to look at that issues in a Scorpio's life, or if we're dealing with the Scorpio energy, can be seen the same way. Sometimes the issues or the situations that we're dealing with, we bring them from underneath in the darkness up to the surface to the light, and we start to try and resolve them or sort them out. And then sometimes we don't get them resolved and sorted out. So we take them back to that safe place in the darkness underneath the crevice, and we bring it back out again. And it's sort of like it has intensified. It's got stronger because we've already started to scratch the surface of it. So we've taken the top layer off or two, and now we're starting to get to the real core of the issue. So I want you to look at it that way. So for those of you that might have Scorpios in your family, or you may be in love with a Scorpio, and then you say to me, gee, Amanda, there's many, many times where I don't feel that they understand me, or I don't feel that I can reach them. Why is it at times that my beloved Scorpio is so quiet? They seem to sort of shut me out. It's like they slam a door shut and there's nothing I can do to pry it open. Look, I understand that that can be very frustrating and it can be very hurtful, and you sort of can take it very personally and think, what have I done wrong? Why aren't they talking to me? Why are they ignoring me? Why are they shutting me out? it's not always the fact that you've done something wrong. Yes, sometimes it can be, and they're just so cranky with you that they're not prepared to talk to you until they've calmed down or until they feel that they've diffused the situation well enough. But quite often it's more the fact that they themselves feel very overwhelmed, don't have answers, and need to go back to their safe place underneath the rock crevice and just chill. They need to sit there. They need to think. They need to turn it over backwards and forwards and upside down and every other which way, and sit on it and ponder on it and think about it and sort of become quite moody. And, you know, there's quite a lot of times when you're working with water sign people, you can see when they're deep in thought or they're upset about something, they get this very black or dark look on their face, and people think, oh, gee, they're really, really cranky. It's not always they're really cranky. It's quite often it's just a sign that they're very deep in thought. They're very focused on trying to find a solution to the things that are going through their mind, the things that are troubling them. So you need to be able to look at it in that sort of way, to understand that they can be very moody. One minute they can be very positive and buoyant and up there, and then the next minute they can be in the depths of despairs and completely the opposite to what they were a few minutes ago. But that's the intensity of the Scorpio energy. Look, I'm not going to say that they're perfect angels and that they don't have emotions and don't have some good and bad parts to them. Every star sign has good and bad parts. But overall, they're usually very fair people. They have a real truth-seeking vein, I think, that runs through them, that they want everything to be sort of exposed. They want the truth to come out. It doesn't always come out in a pretty fashion. Sometimes when they sort of get on their high horse about things, they can sort of be so cutting with their remarks that they sort of forget to sort of ease it in gently. They just come in as if they've had razor blades for breakfast and cut you down to size, and people sort of get very upset by this because they think, well, I'm not that sort of person, or I wouldn't have said it that way, or I wouldn't have handled it that way. But sometimes the intensity of the Scorpio energy forgets to put some niceties in there, or present it in a gentler fashion that everybody can sort of find palatable, and we can sort of then come to the negotiation table and start to talk about it. No, they come in, they're fixed, they're rigid. This is what I've got to say, bam, bam, bang, and that's it. You know, and it's my way or the highway sort of thing. And that gets other people's backs up, and they sort of think, well, how dare they come in like that? They're so bossy and bombastic. And yes, they probably have been all of those things. It's, you've just got to understand the nature of the Scorpion energy. Now, I know that the Scorpion in real life, if you upset a Scorpion, watch out for the sting in the tail. Well, the same is to be said for a Scorpio person. If you upset them, watch out for the sting in the tail. And believe you me, a Scorpion never forgets. They're a little bit like an elephant. They never forget if you've done something wrong by them, and they can resurrect that in many, many, many years down the track and bring it back out and then sort of give you a swipe with their tail then, and the Scorpion stings. So don't ever underestimate a Scorpion. They have a memory as long as an elephant. So that's something to remember. But being in love with a Scorpio can sometimes be a bit of a tricky situation too, because they want to be in control. They want to be the boss cocky in the relationship, whether they're male or female. But quite often they're not strong enough to be the one that, I don't think there's any boss in any relationship. I think it should be a two-way street, and, you know, you should hold that role together jointly, and sort of sometimes one takes the lead a little bit more than the other. But there shouldn't be a boss as such. It should be a unified choice together. But with the Scorpio relationship, they like to feel that they are the boss. They are the one that's leading the relationship or leading the direction that everything's going. And in these modern times, we find that a little bit difficult because people don't like to be bossed around or sort of feel that they're controlled or somebody's owning them in any way. So it can create a lot of tension in a relationship, and even the best relationships. They are said to be the best lovers of the zodiac. So if you want somebody that's really great in that department, always fall in love with a Scorpio, because that is something that, again, it comes back to that intensity, that feeling. And they mightn't be the most romantic of people in the world, but they certainly make the best lovers. And you might say to me, well, Amanda, why would you say that? Don't they go hand in hand? Well, romance and affection don't always need to lead to a bedroom situation. And I think that's where we get our wires crossed a lot of times. A lot of times women are just looking for the affection, you know, somebody to put their arm around them and tell them they're beautiful and I love you, and, you know, to hold them and stroke their face or whatever. They don't necessarily always need the bedroom to feel loved. Yet with the Scorpio, they measure your love by how much activity goes on in the bedroom. You know, if you're not prepared to sort of participate in that way to the level that they want, then they think you don't love them. Yet you might be more of an affectionate person that likes to hold hands and cuddle and kiss and all those sort of things. And the Scorpio doesn't understand that, because that to them must lead to a bedroom. Otherwise, why would you bother doing it? They're not able to differentiate the difference between affection and the bedroom. So that's something to bear in mind. You will also find sometimes with your Scorpio that they can be very jealous and possessive. And this is because it's like an ownership thing to them. You're their possession. They own you. They love you. You're theirs. And it's possession's probably not a word I like to use, but it's the only word that is applicable in this instance, because that's technically underneath all this how they see you. It's like you are their possession. They own you. They're in a relationship with you. So therefore, you're their possession. And this can make it very, very difficult for people to understand and accept. Some people like that feeling, but a lot of people don't like that feeling. So be careful not to do things to set them off. If you're in love with a Scorpio and you know that they don't particularly like you to wear a particular cut of clothing, then don't do it. Because what it's going to do is create argument after argument after argument, and it'll get to the point that they'll like nothing that you wear, because just out of spite, in some cases with some Scorpios, they just won't like anything. So don't do things that you know that deliberately upset them or they don't like. Yes, they can be very jealous, and it's jealous because sometimes it's their own insecurities, that they feel that maybe they're not good enough or can't hold you, or you might find somebody else more attractive than them. And that comes back to a self-esteem issue. In some of the teachings that I've read over the years with astrology, some people describe that as the lower octave of the Scorpio energy, or the lower part of the energy, and the higher part of the energy doesn't see it that way, can rise above it. Look, I'm not sure that I totally agree with that. I understand the concept and I understand where it's coming from, but I also wonder whether or not that's just basically somebody's DNA. That's how they're wired. That, you know, some people are just more jealous and possessive than others. And one of the classic examples I can give you, before you get into a serious commitment with the Scorpio male particularly, he'll be attracted to you because you like to wear low-cut tops, or you like to wear a short skirt, or you like to wear something that's considered sexy and provocative and eye-catching to the male. And they love that about you, and they comment about it. And then when you start to get into a serious relationship with you, all of a sudden that style of clothing and dress is unacceptable. They want you to be sort of covered up from the neck to the floor. And you sort of think, well, wow, what's wrong with you? What have I done wrong? When we first met, that was one of the things that you said that attracted you to me, was because of the way that I dressed, and you liked that. You found it very sexy, very alluring. Well, yes, they did. But the thing is, when you're theirs, they don't want other men to look at you as sexy and alluring. They want other men to sort of, in a sense, ignore you because you're theirs. And they want you to keep that sexy, alluring sort of clothing for wearing at home and turning them on, not turning other people on that are in a public arena. So that's the difference. So you've just got to understand and work with the energy, and don't do things to sort of deliberately upset them. Yes, they can be very moody, and yes, they can play no speakies and don't want to talk to you for days on end, and it can sometimes be a punishment because you've said or done something that they didn't approve of or didn't like. But 9 times out of 10, it's because they have issues rolling around in their head that they haven't been able to sort out. And until they can sort them out, then they can't communicate them with you. So it's their way of dealing with their emotional issues. And I know for a lot of other star signs, it makes it really uncomfortable because they're not that sort of person. If they've got an issue, you flop it on the table and you start talking about it. Even if you don't fully understand it, you flop it out there and let's, you know, try and get some sort of resolution. And it's interesting, you know, Scorpio seems to attract quite often a lot of Aries. A lot of male Scorpios attract a female Aries as a partner. And I've worked with many, many couples over the years with that combination. And I must say, it's one of the worst combinations you could possibly even think of in the astrological love fest. And it's one that I see repeated over and over and over and over again. And, you know, they almost literally try and destroy each other because each one's trying to be more dominant than the other. And it's sort of, the only answer I can come up with is it must be karmic. And maybe these people have had this karmic journey that they've never been able to resolve in many, many other lifetimes. So the universe decides, well, this time we'll give you the ultimate karmic journey. You'll either learn to understand each other or you'll kill each other. That's the only answer I can think of, because it's the most powerful destructive combination I think I've seen as far as relationships are concerned. And I've only ever seen a handful that have been able to rise above this and really get to the beautiful spot of what the relationship can be with each other. So if you're a female Aries and you're sort of falling in love with a Scorpio male, just be a little bit err on the side of caution, because it may not be the greatest match of all time. So having said that, how would we work with a Scorpio candle, I hear you ask? Because we feature a candle each week in this segment. This week I've got the water sign candle, which is the candle that represents Scorpio, but it also represents Cancer and Pisces. So what I would be asking each and every one of you to do that are working with the energy of the candles each week, when we're working with the Scorpio energy, I want you to write on your list 3 things that you feel you need to bring to the surface. Now, they may be issues in your relationship. They may be, do I need to really sort of explore, am I in the right job? Do I need to bring to the surface and maybe put down on paper, I've had, you know, an argument with somebody in the family. Say, for argument's sake, you've had an argument with your cousin, and Christmas is coming, and you know that that particular cousin is going to be around the Christmas table, and you're feeling this is going to be very uncomfortable. Do I attend the family Christmas get together? Do I bow out gracefully and say we're going somewhere else this year? I think it's time to bring that issue to the surface. Now, it's not about laying blame. What I want you to do in that instance, if it's a situation like that, is I want you to start writing down on a piece of paper, put a line down the middle, the things that you can find positive to say about the cousin, the things that you can find positive to say that you used to share together, the things that brought you joy together when you spent time together. Then on the other side of the paper, I want you to put the things down there that have really annoyed you about them. What were the things that led to the disagreement? Now, let's see, by working on this for a few days, if we can get some sort of clarity out of all this. So we might be able to sort of get some answers out of this to say, well, it really was a silly argument. We argued over something that's quite trivial. Maybe I can be the bigger person and attempt to, you know, give the olive branch to them and see if we can resolve this before Christmas Day. But I don't want you to do that until such time as you've read, you know, you've done your little list for a couple of days and made sure you haven't missed anything. And then I want you to put some bullet point forms on your piece of paper that we're going to let go of the grievances that were connected to the argument with the cousin. But we're also going to list some positive things that you would like to bring back into the relationship and strengthen with that person. So yours might just be purely working on the argument that's been there between you and the cousin, and let's get it resolved. Now, I know we're in the Scorpio energy, and you don't necessarily have to just do it this week. You can do this comfortably right up till Christmas if you need to do, if it's a really tough, you know, argument that's been there. So, I mean, normally we only work with the energy for a 7-day maximum, but with a situation like this, I think we can sort of certainly extend the life of this. And for other people, it might just be, you know, coming to terms with emotions that you've had buried for many, many years. You know, you really hated somebody or didn't like somebody because they stole your boyfriend when you were 15 and now you're 45, you think it's time to let that go. So things like that might come to the surface too. And for those of you that might say, look, Amanda, I don't think I've got anything. We'll just put on the piece of paper. I don't think I've got any issues to release, but I'm open to allowing whatever wants to come through. I'll release that with love and light. So sometimes it's just something as simple as that. So burning an extra large candle, my candles have 2 wicks. They have a dual wick system. You're more than welcome if you want to burn both sides at the same time. I like to burn 1 wick one side and 1 side the next day. That way gives you a much longer burn time. Anything from, if you're burning the 2 wicks together, about 40 to 50 hours. But if you're burning alternate wicks, you can get up to about 100-hour burn time out of it. So we need to write our list, pop our list underneath the candle, popping the candle on a coaster. Then we're going to read the list out aloud as we light it. We need to be burning the candle from anything from 15 minutes to 2 hours per day. Bearing in mind, do not leave them under air conditioners, fans, near open windows, near children, dogs, cats, things like that, because accidents do happen, and the last thing we want to do is burn the house down. So for those of you that don't have enough room to be burning a big candle, you might want to purchase our travel kit. Now, this is our travel kit that these candles burn for about 15 hours. They only have one wick in them. Now, this is a kit that you can make up with any one of our candles out of the 27 in our range. So you don't have to have all water signs. We've had quite a lot of orders recently where people are buying these kits and, you know, giving them away as an individual candle for a little present for teachers and, you know, the hairdresser or whatever, people that you don't want to buy a big gift for, but you've got a nice little gift that you can give them. So these burn for approximately 15 hours each. So for those of you that don't wish to work with a flame, can I suggest a melt warmer? These here in Australia are around about $15. You buy them at the local supermarket or department store or variety store. Now, what you do with these, they have a little dish on the top that you can lift off. Now, when you first start with your new supply of wax, putting it onto your little dish for the melt warmer, I want you to take about 2 teaspoons full out of your candle. Then you add about ½ a teaspoon a day to it, and you turn the melt warmer on. You do the same principle, write your list, read it out aloud, pop it underneath the melt warmer on a coaster, never on directly on the furniture. You can turn this on and you can safely leave this on while you're there. Now, you can use these at home or you can use them in the office. They don't have to be babysat. Just remember to turn them off at the end of the day. And they will work exactly the same. You'll have a beautiful fragrance going throughout, but you'll also be setting your intent, purpose, and direction of working with the water sign energy. So for those of you that might want a private reading with me, you can head to my website, www.amandahallpsychic.com.au. Don't forget while you're there, in capital letters, to type Facebook in the coupon box, and you will receive a little discount there. We also, all the discount applies to everything, whether it's candles, services, products, courses, things like that, all right across the board. You will get a discount. On next week's workshop, we're going to be working with the full moon in Gemini, so that'll be a really exciting one as we're heading towards the end of the year. But I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us wherever you are in this world of ours. Don't forget, pop your name in the comments box and I'll certainly sort of wave back to you. Have a great week wherever you are in this world of ours. But before we go, can I ask you to all keep in your prayers, in your positive thoughts, some energy going towards those people in California that are facing those terrible fires. It's a terrible tragedy. There's been many homes lost. Many people are going to have to rebuild their lives. We need to pray for positive energy and most of all rain to put those fires out so those poor people can start to rebuild their lives. I've personally been through fire. I lived through bushfires when I was a child. I do understand the tragedy and the loss that comes with it and how long it takes you to rebuild after that. It's something that is a major catastrophe in your life when you lose things through fire. It's a real grief that you go through, you know, the things that you've lost that were important to you. And people say, oh, they're only material possessions. You're lucky you've still got your life. Yes, I totally agree with that. But what some people fail to realize, some of those important personal trinkets or things that were important to you, you can never replace. Yes, you can have them in your mind, but they symbolize somebody that was special or important to you, or they were important to you as a person. And they're the things that you grieve over. They're the things that take you a long time to rebuild. And I don't know that you ever completely get over it. It's like losing someone special to you. So please hold them in your prayers and thoughts. Until next week, bye for now.